Hey, I'm Jake. I'm 24, working the daily grind in marketing. Until recently, life had been pretty steady. I was renting a small place, putting in hours at work, doing my best to stay ahead of the bills. But a few months ago, things started to unravel. Rent in the city spiked out of nowhere. My roommate bailed on me without warning, and suddenly I was neck-deep in expenses I couldn't cover on my own. That's when my buddy Ryan stepped up and said, "Why don't you crash at my place for a bit? My parents won't care." I didn't think twice. Ryan's been like family since college. We played football together, stayed close through the years, always kept in touch. So yeah, I said yes without blinking. I packed up my stuff and moved into the guest room at his parents' house in the suburbs. His dad was barely ever home, always off on work trips. But his mom? She was there. Her name's Carolyn. I remembered her from back in the day. She'd pick Ryan up after practice sometimes. She always had this quiet kind of grace about her. Blonde hair, piercing blue eyes, and the kind of presence that made people turn and look. I hadn't seen her in years, though. I figured when I moved in, she'd say a quick hello and keep to herself. Turns out I was way off. On my second day there, Ryan had already headed out, and I was in the kitchen making coffee. Carolyn walked in wearing a soft gray robe that barely reached her knees. Her hair was still wet, like she'd just stepped out of the shower. I tried not to look, but man, she looked incredible. "Morning," she said casually, like this was any other day. "Glad you haven't left yet." Then she mentioned a box of decorations in the garage that needed moving to the attic, but it was too heavy for her to manage alone. I gave her a nod. "Sure, I can help." So we went out to the garage. The box honestly wasn't that heavy, but I played along. I followed her up the stairs. When we got to the attic door, she turned back and gave me this soft smile. "Let's just pretend you're only helping," she said. But the way she said it, with that quiet tone and slight curve of her lips, it felt like something else entirely. Like we both knew this wasn't just about a box. Like something between us had quietly shifted. I didn't say a word. Just handed her the box once we got upstairs. But that smile stuck in my head. I couldn't shake it. Later that night, Ryan came home, and everything felt like normal again. We ate dinner, threw on some ridiculous action movie, laughed like we always had. Still, that attic moment replayed in my head. Her voice. Her look. The way she'd said it, it lingered. Next morning, she asked for help again. Something about a curtain rod in her bedroom that had come loose. Ryan was already off to work. I was standing in the kitchen, gym shorts and a tank top, sipping water, when she walked in, fully dressed this time, but there was still something in her eyes. When I stepped into her room, the feeling hit me again. That quiet tension. The weight in the air. I climbed the step ladder and fixed the rod. When I turned around, she was standing close. Too close. She looked right at me and said, "I've been alone in this house more than you probably think." I didn't move. And neither did she. "You don't seem like someone who minds being alone," I said. She smiled. "You might be surprised." That was it. No touching, no kissing, just another charged moment. One more step towards something bigger. And I could feel it. This wasn't a fling or some game. I wasn't treating it like one, and neither was she. That night, I lay awake in the dark, staring at the ceiling. This wasn't just a passing thought. Whatever was happening had weight. And the reckless part of me wanted to see where it would lead. Thursday night is when the line finally got crossed. Ryan had a date, some girl he met at the gym. He left around 6, tossed a "Don't wait up" over his shoulder. By 7, the whole house was still and quiet. I was in the kitchen making a sandwich when Carolyn came in. Black jeans, soft beige sweater that hugged her like it was meant to. She looked tired, but in a beautiful, effortless kind of way. You're not much of a cook, huh? She said with a half smile, leaning on the counter. I grinned. Not unless sandwiches count. She moved slowly, poured herself a glass of wine. Well, better than nothing. What one? She asked. I wasn't big on wine, but I nodded anyway. We sat on opposite ends of the couch in the living room. The TV was on, but neither of us cared. We just talked. Random stuff at first. Silly stories from Ryan's childhood. Her work at the local nonprofit. How tired she'd been lately. Her voice was calm, steady, but something was under it. Something heavy she wasn't saying. She stared at her wine glass for a while, then finally asked, Do you ever feel like you're just surviving? I looked right at her. All the time. She turned toward me. I've been married for 21 years, she said. 22, actually. Know how many of those I felt like I had a real partner? I didn't answer. I didn't have to. She laughed quietly. Sorry. I don't know why I'm saying all this. I probably shouldn't. It's okay, I said. You don't have to pretend with me. She looked at me a long time, then stood up. Can you help me with something upstairs? She asked, casual on the surface, but I heard the shift beneath it. So we went. Her bedroom was softly lit, that warm golden glow from the lamp beside the bed. She pointed toward the dresser. Top drawer's stuck again. I gave it a tug. It opened right away. It hadn't been stuck. We both knew it. I turned around, and she was just a few feet away. Arms crossed, not like she was protecting herself, more like holding something back. Her breathing wasn't steady. And before I could stop myself, I said it. Carolyn, maybe we should stop this before it even begins. She didn't budge. Do you want to stop? She asked. I didn't answer. She stepped closer. Because I don't. We stood there, no touching, barely any space between us. I could feel the heat coming off her skin, the weight of everything we weren't saying. And then she kissed me. It wasn't rushed or wild. It was slow, purposeful, real. And when I kissed her back, I didn't hold anything back. I didn't second guess it. I just let it happen. Her hand slid along my arms. Mine found her waist. She pulled me toward the bed, but paused, her fingers resting on my chest. Jake, she whispered. I'm not drunk. I'm not confused. I know exactly what I'm doing. I know. I told her. So do I. We didn't say another word. That night changed everything. It wasn't just sex. It wasn't boredom or wine. It was intentional. It was powerful. It came from something deep, years of silence, routine, a marriage that had long stopped being a partnership. And for me, it was electric. Dangerous. Unlike anything I'd ever felt before. I slipped out of her room around 2:20 a.m. Barefoot, walking the hallway like I hadn't just crossed a line I couldn't uncross. The house was still. Ryan's door was closed. My heart was racing like I'd run a marathon. I climbed into the guest bed, stared at the ceiling, and realized something strange. I didn't feel guilty. I was already thinking about when I'd see her again. After a while, I couldn't just sit there anymore. I got up and started walking upstairs, slow like every step might give me away. Her bedroom door was closed. I stood there for a second with my hand halfway up, like I was still deciding. Then I just knocked. A few seconds later, she opened the door. No makeup. Hair pulled back. She had on an old hoodie and a pair of jeans. Nothing like how she usually looked when it was just the two of us. No smile. No surprise. She just stepped aside and said, Come in. I walked in, and for some reason, the room felt colder than usual. Not physically, just in the air between us. We sat down on the edge of her bed, close enough to feel it, but not touching. There was this long stretch of silence that felt like it weighed 100 pounds. Then she said it. I think we have to stop. She didn't soften it, didn't try to ease into it or explain it first. She just said it, straight and hard. And I sat there, nodding like I'd already run through this scene in my head a dozen times. Because honestly, I had. Yeah, I said quietly. I figured. Carolyn looked down at her hands, fidgeting with her fingers like she needed something to anchor herself. Someone's going to get hurt, she said softly. And it's not just going to be us. I get it, I told her. And I meant it. But understanding it didn't make it hurt any less. She kept going, like she needed to say everything before she lost the nerve. I didn't see this coming, Jake. I wasn't out looking for it. I didn't plan it. I turned toward her. Neither did I. She let out a shaky breath. I care about you, probably more than I should, she said, voice low. But we're playing with fire. You know that, right? I know, I said. I really do. I'm tired of hiding, of pretending, of lying, she continued. Every time I look Ryan in the eye, and even my husband, yeah, maybe he barely even sees me anymore, but he's still my husband. She wasn't crying, but the crack in her voice hid deeper than tears would have. I'm not ashamed of what we had, she said gently. I needed to feel something again, and you gave me that. You reminded me I'm still alive. She paused, and then came the part one already knew was coming. But we can't keep doing this. We can't keep acting like it doesn't come with consequences. I nodded, slow. I couldn't say anything. My throat felt like it was in a vice. So I just sat there, listening, trying not to fall apart. Then she looked at me, really looked, and asked, Do you regret it? I didn't even blink. No. She gave this soft little nod. Good. Because I don't either. I want us to stop before it turns into something ugly. Before it ruins everything. Before we get caught. That one landed deep. Not because it was cruel, because it was honest. She wasn't angry. Just heart-heavy. I stood up, and so did she. We walked to the door side by side. She opened it, but didn't step aside right away. Her hand hovered, like she wanted to reach out and touch my face. Or grab my hand. Or say something else. But she didn't. Promise me one thing, she said. Anything, I replied. If you ever look back on this, don't carry guilt. Remember it for what it was. I swallowed the lump in my throat. I promise. And then I left. No glance back. No final words. Just walked down the stairs with my chest in knots, and my heart trying to crawl out of me. That night, I packed my bags. Told Ryan I'd found a cheap little studio downtown and needed my own space again. He didn't ask a lot of questions. Maybe he had a feeling. Maybe he just didn't want to know. I moved out the next morning. She wasn't around when I left. And that was that. Or it was supposed to be. Almost a year slipped by. 11 months and change, if we're counting. No calls. No texts. No accidental run-ins. Not even a, "How have you been?" I hadn't seen her since that morning. I walked out with a duffel bag slung over my shoulder, and my heart cracked wide open. At first, I'd think about her in the weirdest moments. A song on the radio. A woman with the same blonde hair crossing the street. But over time, those thoughts faded into background noise. Always there, just quiet enough for me to pretend I wasn't still listening. I'd moved on, at least on the surface. Got my own apartment. Picked up more freelance gigs. Dated a few women. But nothing serious. Nothing that stuck. Then, one Saturday afternoon, I wandered into this little cafe I'd never even noticed before. Had a bit of time to kill before a client meeting. Ordered a black coffee, grabbed a table, started scrolling through my phone. And then I heard it. Not, "Hey." Not, "Excuse me." Just, "Jake." And in that moment, I knew. I looked up, and there she was. Carolyn. She hadn't changed much. Maybe a little more worn around the eyes, like life had been a bit heavier lately. But she still carried that calm grace, that soft but steady confidence I'd never forgotten. She had on a long beige coat over a black turtleneck, hair pulled back in that effortless way I used to admire without even realizing how much. "Wow," I said, getting to my feet too quickly. "Hi." "Hi," she said back, offering a small, uncertain smile. "Mind if I sit?" she asked. I motioned to the chair across from mine. "Of course." She set her purse down gently, folded her hands in her lap. There was a long stretch of silence, not awkward, not stiff, just full. Full of everything we weren't saying yet. "I didn't think I'd ever see you again," she said. "Same," I replied. "Didn't even know you ever came to this part of town." "I usually don't," she said, glancing down at the table. "My office had a team event nearby." Then she looked back up, meeting my eyes. "You look good." "Thanks. You too." Another pause. She turned toward the window, eyes distant. "I've thought about texting you more times than I can count. I know how that feels," I said softly. She looked over at me again, really looked, and her eyes were just the same. Sharp. Deep. That same quiet clarity that always made me feel like she could see past everything I hid. "I meant what I said back then," she continued, voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't regret any of it." "Neither did I told her." She leaned in slightly. "I still don't," she said even softer. I shifted in my seat, leaning back a little. Didn't know what to say to that. Because truth be told, seeing her again brought all of it rushing back. Not just the pull, the tension, but that connection. That strange, unspoken thread that had never snapped. "How's everything?" I asked. "At home, I mean." She gave a small smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Same. Maybe worse." I nodded slowly. "And Ryan?" she asked. Her voice dipped when she said his name, like it stung a little. "He still has no idea," I said. "Still talks about you sometimes. Asks what you're up to." That one hit harder than I thought it would. I looked away. "Yeah, I think about him too." She reached into her coat pocket, pulled out her phone, stared at the screen a second, then slid it across the table. There was a message on it. Already typed, never sent. "No one's home tomorrow." I stared at the words. Not with panic. With something deeper. Like memory, recognition, and a quiet ache that had been sitting in the background too long. "I tried to move on," she said, her voice so quiet I had to lean in to hear. "Tried to forget. You? Us. But it's still there, Jake. I don't think it ever left." I looked her straight in the eyes. "Same here." We sat there with cold coffee in front of us and the noise of the cafe spinning around, but for that moment, it all faded again. Just like it used to. Then I said, "If we're going to do this again, we can't lie to ourselves." "We never did," she replied. "That's what made it real." That night, I couldn't sleep. I paced my apartment like I was waiting for something. A reason not to go, a sign to let it be. But nothing came. At 11:05 p.m., my phone lit up. Tomorrow. Noon. I didn't reply. But I went. When she opened the door, she was wearing a simple sweater and jeans. No makeup. Hair down. Nothing dressed up. Just her, just real. She didn't say anything. Just gave me a look that said enough. I stepped inside. She closed the door behind me. And just like that, we were back. No long speeches. No false promises. No pretending this would ever be easy. Just two people who tried to let go, and maybe, deep down, never really wanted to.